And we're live.
Cool, but let's kick off the intro.
Oh, we need to do the intro. Oh, wait.
Yes, sir. The intro's going. But now we need
intro's
to be
going.
quiet. Shh, Darko. Shh. They can hear us.
Can they?
Yes, okay. They can definitely hear us. So pretend that nobody knows we're here.
Okay.
Okay. Don't giggle at the circle joke. For those who've just joined us, why is a circle the most useless shape ever? There's absolutely no point to it. And hello, everyone. Welcome to another session of DevBeardOps, where I try to make Darko struggle for breathing just before we start a show for fun.
Exactly.
And I shared the joke with you folks now through the intro as well. But DevBeardOps, it is not about the beard on the outside, for those who are wondering. It's about the beard on the inside. And this is a weekly show where Darko and myself talk about DevOps-related things, cloud, AWS, tech in general, and all of that. And today we're going to do something slightly more laid back than we normally do, and we're going to try and engage with the folks watching us today a lot more. Because what we want to talk about is things that we found in our careers that had impact, whether it's a specific discussion with certain stakeholders or things, or if it was more a, hey, let's adopt this tech, or how do we get folks to adopt those tech and things. And we also want to hear from you who are streaming and watching us today, what you've had and things you've struggled with. But before we get to all of that, Darko, why don't you introduce yourself quickly?
Hello, everybody. I was just typing out something. Welcome to the DevBeardOps streaming, and thank you very much, Kpis, for this lovely introduction. My name is Darko Mesaros. I am, as this gentleman next to me, I'm also a developer advocate. I am based in Berlin, Germany. I'm originally from Serbia, and one of the fun things I like to do is I like to automate stuff. Hence, one of the DevOps parts of this entire stream here is that I think both Kpis and I myself, we like to automate stuff. Hence,
very much.
Hence, the cloud is great. Yeah, I started also like a system administrator. Kpis, were you a sysadmin when you started?
I never had the title, but I always did the work. So setting up like the office infrastructure, the VPN, whatever things were wikings, the things, I always just ended up doing that. So
I was a system administrator 3. In one of my first jobs. That was my official role, system administrator 3. And if my colleague, he knows who he is, if he ever watches the stream, I remember on my second week in that new role, I asked him, so, hey, when do I get to be system administrator 2? He says, when I go to retirement. So I never went to be a system administrator 2, but I become something else. Good day, WLRZA. Warza. Yeah, good day and welcome to the stream. A question for the audience. Is our audio good? Let us know if the audio is fine, because I can hear Kpis fine. He can hear me. Just make sure that we are... Sorry, what?
Sorry, what?
So just make sure that he can hear us okay. Thank you very much, Tom Telecom. Yes. That rhymes. Coolio. Thank you all. Thank you all the feedback.
Cool.
So,
awesome.
Kpis.
Yes.
Can you kick us off?
Yes. So, I think the most fun thing and fun initially it was the complete opposite of fun, but later on was actually a good one, is getting teams to adopt a new way of doing things. Now, just quick for some of the background. Before joining AWS, I had a full-time job as a DevOps engineer / developer / come help us fix things type role. It was never just coding. It was always coding and infrastructure and config management and managing the servers and basically make the software go faster for the people who are just writing software. And that changed into, because the more discussions I had with people, it's the more hey, nobody seems interested in sorting out this, what's basically the plumbing and getting things to work. And I found that by speaking to people and saying, listen, I'm very good at this. They're like, can you please come help us? So that led me to start doing some consulting, where basically I would have anything between one full-time, or at one point I think I had 3 or 4 different companies I was working for at the same time, helping them automate stuff, making the configuration management easy and all of that. So I was kind of okay, well, people seem very happy for me to pay me to come help them with these things. Everybody seemed to have this problem. So yeah, let's go for it. And then at one company, what happened is that I came in and I said, okay, cool. Well, you're busy moving some service things to AWS. I've done this before. Let me help you and put a Terraform in place. We were using Jenkins. Let me show you how to build out proper Jenkins files so you can easily roll out your infrastructure. Here's a little framework for that. Show them the value. Boom, it looked great, because the benchmark was previously it took 2 weeks to get a new service up and running. And now all of a sudden they were able to do it in, I think, 41 minutes as a demo for someone who was new to the company and to the team and to this kind of infrastructure stuff. So it was like, I was going like patting myself on the back. Yay, success. No, the reason was that some of the teams just didn't want to adopt this. They were like, nope, why do we need to? Our service is up and running. We don't need this change. Yes. And I like stood back for like a few days and trying to figure out like, okay, what did I do wrong here? I showed you how to make things easy, how to do things better. But what I didn't take into account was the fact that I'd done this a lot of times before. And if you're new to software development, I just showed you how to do it. It seemed fairly simple and straightforward. However, if you'd been doing this for the last few years in a very specific, different way, and now all of a sudden there's something new, and I didn't spend enough time doing documentation, doing training with the folks, then it's a case of like, no, there are too many steps over here. Why do we want to do it this way? This is not the right way. We used to do it the other way. It's no. We don't need this.
Yeah. That's a fair point. I think your position here that getting people to adopt a big change is very difficult.
Yeah.
Now let me get all Amazon interview on you. What would you do? What would you do differently in that case? Like now, with the current knowledge, how would you approach this now? So put yourself in young Kpis' shoes.
Oh, that stings, Darko.
Younger Kpis' shoes. And what would you suggest or do as younger Kpis?
The two big things I would say is firstly, take them on the journey with you. Like show them how you start changing and bringing in the bits chunk by chunk, instead of saying like, here's your thing all wrapped nicely, boom, now just do this. So to bring them along, saying, cool, today we're going to work on, let's sort out your config management and bring it into the new system. Let me show you how and where the benefit is and how it makes things easier for you, etc. The second part is I would also probably spend more time socializing the changes before we start doing them with them, to get people comfortable with the idea that, hey, listen, change is coming. Because as with all things, if you're a software developer, most folks primarily think your job is to churn out code and get new features into production, where your job is actually to solve business problems. And it just happens to mostly be code that helps you solve those. Because it doesn't help you've got the best code ever and it can't run on a server because you don't know how to deploy it.
I think that's a really cool point. I've run into this situation, a similar situation in my past, that you try to implement a major change to a specific process, a thing, infrastructure, whatever you run and own, whatever. Then you run into problems because it's cool for you, but it's not better for everybody else, or at least they do not see it as better. So DevOps engineers, if you exist, people in the audience who are making changes to your infrastructure, make sure to show people how easy your system is or how better it is than the previous one. One of the things I teach people is like, people need to understand things through contrast, right? So showing them this is the old system, this is the new system, and how better it is, right? So I think your fair point, taking them through the entire adventure and actually showing them differences and the things you will be doing is just a great point.
Yeah, and the other part of that whole process that I realized is that almost like business analyst style, you need to go spend time with the folks doing something to actually figure out how they're doing something. Because one of the biggest challenges we had was that the way we did config management was that it uses Kpis to encrypt and decrypt config values, because guess what? You don't want, like, for example, a database password accessible to everyone. So what I did is I implemented an interesting system there where for production, the developers had encryption rights, but no decryption rights. So they could go ahead and change a password to something new, which we then rolled out for the databases, infrastructure, automation pipeline, applied it. But then unless they copy pasted it somewhere, they wouldn't have that. But they did have SSH access to some of the instances. And then when we came to one of the, like one services deploy, there was like a mad scramble the day saying like, hey, listen, I can't connect to the database anymore to run the migration scripts. And I went like, wait, hold on, you connect directly to a production database and run database migration scripts by hand? And they're like, yeah, no, we've been doing it always. Like, and I was like completely blown away, like, A, why are we doing this? And B, how did this not come up?
I think that thing we've been doing it always is like one of the terms I've heard a lot. No.
Yep.
This is how it was always, right? That's just
Yeah.
this is the way we do things.
Yeah. No, but it was a bit of a rough one. It's one of those, like, if you've ever done like schema migrations for a database using basically, I can't remember what they call it, was we use the code, your ORM, to actually do those changes for you. Because what you can do is you can change the object shape in the code and say, okay, cool, now generate me a migration script to go from X to whatever like this is.
Yeah.
That's great if it generates a SQL script that you can then add to a list of SQL scripts that you can run in sequence. So you can see, okay, cool, let me start running these scripts, and there's some kind of check to figure out whether or not it needs to run that or not. No. What they had was these models, and they would checkpoint them at some time and say, okay, cool, generate me a new database way of doing it right now. And then kick off something in the code somewhere that handled the migration for them, which was like super risky. It's like, my question to them is, okay, so let's say something goes wrong here, like it did once where it took a really long time to rebuild an index because you changed it. How do you fix it? How do you go back? They're like, we wait and we hope it doesn't break. So it was an interesting education period.
I would say so, right? So I think one of the points here, like, it takes time to convince people to make changes, right? So I think that's kind of a point in this case, right? So doing big changes is unless you can do them transparently. So I've seen people implement changes which are like, hey, just keep on doing what you're doing, and like in the back end we just keep on changing, and then I think at the end you have to do like this change which is kind of visible, but everything else is just very much low key. So that's one of the points as well. Yeah, but chat, tell us if you had anything like this. Have you ever done like a big change in your environment or in your code base, in your infrastructure, whatever you do, and that you had trouble people adopting that? I really want to hear your examples on that, because I think that's a more common thing that happens than we think. And I remember talking to people about, they're like, how can I convince my developers to use Git? I'm like, they're not using Git. But that's not the solution, right? It's not a solution to make fun of it, but it's a solution. Okay, why? What's the problem? Yeah.
Spoken like someone who grew up with Git. Darko,
Exactly.
Get off my lawn.
Yeah.
No, it's like literally, when I started working, we had just moved off SourceSafe onto SVN, and that was a massive step up. I've even worked with, I don't know if you've ever heard of Perforce.
No, what is that?
Yeah, Perforce it's also a version control system, but it's got these weird things where you've got like workspaces, and when you check out a workspace, you lock it on the back end so that nobody else can make changes to that. And I was working at a large organization that used it, and what ended up happening sometimes is someone would check out a workspace, be busy working on it, leave the company, and not unlock it. And then you had these weird things to be able to get back into the code and being able to make changes and things. It's like, yeah, it's horrible.
I've only ever used Git as like an official code repository. I know hey, until 2000 and let's say 14, I haven't seen a proper modern system. So I've been running on relatively old systems. So I've actually grew up with keeping code in a zip file on a remote share and just calling it the final version or the final version. So it's
yeah.
And there's a comment here from Gert25. I worked for a company that did their database migrations management on Excel sheets. Yeah. So did you try to help them change that, Gert? Were you trying to influence them not to do that? Because if you did, I would like to hear how. Because
and also, what was the final solution?
And what was the final solution? Yeah. What was the outcome of that? So
yeah. I think changing people's process is probably the hardest thing to do at a company, especially if the processes are brittle and people are scared to do anything. Like the typical "don't deploy on a Friday" discussion. That is like the people on both sides of that fence.
So Gert says yes, I moved it to .NET Code First Migrations. I love that tool.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with that tool. Have you used it, Kpis?
Yeah, I actually have used it. It's basically similar to what I described with the previous stuff. Is you make the changes in the code, and then what the code can do is, because you write the code first,
Okay.
you then from there generate your SQL scripts. So the two main ways of doing it is either database first, where you do the database and generate your models off the database, or you do the code first and generate the database off the models. Yeah.
Okay.
So
That's interesting. All right. Very cool.
yeah, you can. The nice thing there is you can make it part of your application startup. That it checks, has this migration run before or not, and then on app startup it'll migrate. The only challenge there is if you're running multiple copies of your app, not to step on each other's toes when you spin up two versions of it. But that's a side discussion. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, ProEvils mentions Laravel does models and migrations really well. Yeah. So there are tools out there. The thing is, I mentioned, I said this today, is like people are just reluctant to change. I don't know why. It's human, right? It's like, oh, I'm used to this system. Why should I ever try anything else? And that's like a fair observation from a human perspective, but it's not something that should stop you in like trying to make it better, because ultimately you as a developer or an engineer or whatever you are trying to make your company, your colleagues' lives better. So you should always try. Yeah, if it's not broke, don't fix it. That's Disagree. I would say it's disagree. Even though you may break it even more, right? So you may actually end up breaking it. But ultimately, if the outcome is that you have made something good, I think it's valuable to tinker. And I think it's in us engineers, it's just a thing we do. We like to tinker with things that are not broken, and we'll try to break them and then fix them. So that's a good point.
Yeah, but I think the point there is, like, someone a long time ago told me, like, that person's retired mentally at 30.
Yes.
And what I've seen there is it ties back into experiences. Like, some people learn doing something in one way and then are not interested in learning any other way of doing it. It's just like, let's take this cookie cutter and we apply it to every single thing that comes our way, no matter what, for the next 23 years. And that definitely doesn't work with our industry, because things keep on changing. The way you do things change. And you can last by staying at let's say a very large enterprise that only does things in a very old way, but they are going to change at some point.
And like, it's weird how that thing comes up time and time again. Like, even if we go outside of IT, that thing will never catch on. Nobody will ever use that. It's just a fad. Those things come and go. But especially, you say, in IT, because things move so fast, if you do not adapt. I have a friend who an acquaintance. He was a big IBM engineer in the 80s, right? He did like a lot of things back in the 1980s with IBMs, and I'm not sure what IBM ran back then, but he was like a systems engineer for IBM systems, for mainframes or whatnot. And I remember, like, in the early 2000s, I spoke to him like, oh, I want to get myself certified in being a Microsoft certified systems engineer, MCSE. And he's like, nah, Microsoft will never catch on. So yeah, that has been a different kind of a thing happening. So don't try to resist change. Of course, there are some things that I don't agree with. I think some new services I don't like, and that's fine. Here's the thing: how can you convince me or Kpis or your audiences? Make our lives better, right?
Yeah. Show the value.
Show the value, right? If I can come to you and say, well, I've set up this major infrastructure as code pipeline that will do all of this kind of testing, and if you don't show the engineer, like, why should I care? Why that those are words, but why should I care? You have to basically show them, listen, git commit, and then all of a sudden you have 5 testing environments. Boom.
I must say, my favorite one there of showing the value of the automation that I did was by setting up basically autoscaling groups but this was now years ago when they weren't that used that much. Is like showing someone, well, we pre-built an AMI and we've got code deploy set up, which means that as soon as a new instance comes up in an autoscaling group, minutes or two, and the new code's deployed and it's up and running. And basically the way I demonstrated this at one place that I was consulting very early on is like, okay, cool, we've put this in place. Open up the production EC2 console, select one less than the total number of production instances during quiet time, and show the CTO, listen, look, right-click, terminate. Yeah. And you could see, you just went like, what the? And I said, no, just watch quickly. Refresh a couple of times, you see, boom, boom, 2 new ones. refresh, show them the load balancer, boom, boom, new one's coming up. And all of a sudden we're like, oh, this is nice. And then like, oh, by the way, we do this every week. We replace freshly built servers every single week. So how's that for your disaster discovery? So I think that comes in with what Dan is saying here, which is it has to align with job incentives and things.
Yes, and you have to have this business buy-in. I know we're going like into like non-tech stuff, but you really need to have business buy-in. Unless a business is not on your side to do this, it's a fool's errand. However, you can get the business on your side and then do the rest. But if you want to get the business on your side, I have an advice for you. Make it very visual. If your demo makes no sense in production, that's fine. As long as I had a customer, they would have an auto-scaling group just like you. They would have 50 instances in the auto-scaling group. They had a process that would terminate an instance every 10 minutes. Randomly. Just like kill it. And and just to show how a resilient system is, that means no instance could ever be built manually with hands. It has to be configured automatically and all the things. So that's you wouldn't do that in production probably, or you can, but it's more of a visual way. Like, hey, this is amazing. Why are we not doing this? So by the way, before we continue, welcome to all the new viewers. Welcome to Dev. We have a bunch of new people joining in. Welcome to DevBeardOps, where this gentleman and myself, Kpis and Darko, we talk about the cloud automation, DevOps things, technology. Yes. And today's topic is impactful events from our careers and what kind of things we've built, done, and what kind of hurdles we ran into that maybe you won't run into as well. And we also want your input, so feel free to let us know in the chat if you have any great story you want to tell us or a situation you'd like us to discuss on. So we love hearing all of those things, right? Pro Evils, you said, so what do you both use? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Are you talking about testing pipelines or because Wowie?
Automation?
Automation? Yeah.
Influencing mechanisms?
Yeah. So Wowie, any recommendations for a testing pipeline? It depends.
Well, here's my big tip over there. Whatever you use, figure out how you can abstract away the thing that kicks off and runs the actual testing steps for you from the actual tool that runs these steps. And just quickly dig in that. Let's say we're using Jenkins, like something that's very popular. And Jenkins has got lots of plugins, and you now go and pick, for example, a testing plugin that does specific things specifically with Jenkins. What I found in the past is that there are two issues with that. Is that firstly, at some point you might move to somewhere else where it doesn't use Jenkins, or you in the current company wants to move away from Jenkins. And I'm just putting Jenkins up here as an example. The second step is if it's a plugin inside Jenkins, it means that I can't run that locally, which means that I can't do the test locally. And what I found over time is like the more you enable the developers to do everything locally that they can in CI, the more likely they are to do it. Because otherwise, if it takes, if I can't test locally, I'm going to go, well, push commit, cheers. The testing will pick it up. It's not my problem. Whereas if listen, you can do it locally, then they take more interest in it. So I would definitely push for doing that.
Cool. Another comment from Venkata. What is your take on no-code or low-code tools out there? I personally had like CMS, Jamstack, trend that's happening. Some tools are Strapi and AWS Amplify. Strapi. Never used it.
Strapi.
Strapi. Yeah. Okay, so my point on no-code tools is they're great. We should not be gatekeeping like, a no-code tool will never do things. No-code or low-code has been attempted since the 80s, right? And people were trying to build no-code or low-code solution for a long time. And now there are a couple of good ones, right? So there are a couple of good examples of them. And why not empower more of your workforce, more of your colleagues to build things rather than having to expect them to know full coding. And I always take the example, like in the old days, you had to do things in assembly because that was the only way to use the hardware you had properly. Now we have so much hardware, we have so much compute resources. So abstracting things to a no-code system, even if it's not the most efficient thing in the world, in most cases, for the use cases of no-code, low-code, I think that's perfectly fine. So.
And also, I think what's happening is that, remember, things are moving really quickly. I mean, especially in tech, how quickly new frameworks and new ways of doing things come out. Now, if you're new to, for example, cloud development, knowing about how to add auth, how to set up the services, configure them, link them, do all of that takes time to learn. Whereas if you can use something like Amplify and just say, well, let me build something, get up and running, focus on the core business logic, and get the app out and running, that means you can now spend time getting the app up, and then once it's up and running and do what it's supposed to, start digging into more the underlying, how does X and Y work?
Yes.
Because I mean, at the end of the day, just remember, you can go down, just as one example, let's talk networking. Go down to the actual datagram packets and what they look like and what's in there and all that. And then still you'll realize there's an entire world just on that level. So you can always go deeper. I don't think anybody's ever able to, get to the bottom and know everything. It's too much.
Exactly. Just a couple of comments here. Mr. Pentraxel, thank you very much. Make sure to check out the video later on YouTube. It's available on the YouTube channel here, not Kpis, not Darko. It's going to be there. And it's also going to be on twitch.tv/AWS as well. Kudale, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the feedback. We love sharing experiences with all of you. So feel free to share things with us as well. We like hearing more stuff. William Dampier, we haven't seen you in a while. William, you've been here. I always treat having impact as part of a DevOps role. I never considered that to be linked with raises or promotions. That's the thing. Some people are incentivized with promotions and money, and that's fine. Hey, ultimately, what we're doing brings food on the table. I can put stuff in my mouth because of this. But sometimes you're just an engineer and you like tinkering with things. However, that might not be that feeling might not be shared with everyone, right? So if you as an engineer get super excited by like, oh, I have this amazing small HDD and we can do wonders with it. Yeah, for you, but not for everybody, right? So you have to get that enthusiasm and the benefits and the value to the rest as well.
And I mean, I think diving into this comment a little bit more from the Amazon and AWS perspective. So internally, we've got a system using levels to determine what level you are on, which is your job title. So both Darko and myself are currently level 6, which is Senior Developer Advocates. Next level up is Principal, which is level 7. And the thing is that becomes interesting with Amazon is the higher you go up, the more it's a case of what impact have you had and how can you quantify that impact. And it is about, I'm a hard worker and I churn out a crap load of work. So Darko myself can be the best DAs ever in terms of getting quantity of sessions out there, engagement and things in there. But then the question always comes back, so what? What was the impact? If you can't answer that, you're dead in the water, you won't get promoted. So impact is often related and viewed from especially management level of what are you doing to change things, not just like how fast you churn your wheels.
Exactly. So make sure whatever you're doing has some sort of an impact, or if you don't care, it's also good, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, have fun. So that is very important as well. I want to touch on the question back from Gert. So about the no-code platforms. Gert likes no-code platforms only if it gives them control back at some point. And I get it. I get it. Like, I am a person who likes to have all of my technology in control, right? I get angry when I cannot do something on a system because there's an arbitrary blockage in that place. I get angry about those things. However, that has bit me in the behind a lot in the past. So I remember a long time ago, I was doing something with PHP. And I was doing something with JavaScript, like a front-end thing with JavaScript. And everybody told me like, oh, just use jQuery, you have a lot of things. And I was like, I don't have control over jQuery. I'm going to write everything from scratch. Yep. Oh boy. I ended up writing this horrible, ugly vanilla JavaScript application, which just didn't work. And I spent way more time than I should. The same goes with PHP as well. I didn't want to use a framework for PHP. I wrote my own login and authentication systems instead of using something off the shelf. So having control is great. Just think about how much is it worth in this case. Sometimes it's perfectly valuable, right? You don't want a system that it's just a black box. You throw something in it and you get something out and you don't know if it's ever going to keep on doing that. Fair point. Just try to balance it out, how much of the control you really need in this case. But yeah.
No, definitely. I mean, my favorite thing is like I tried to build an ORM once. All I can say is don't.
Really? How did that turn out?
Horrible because of all the edge cases, and also as soon as you get to transaction management across multiple tables, then you realize like, oh, this is complicated. And yeah, it's but I mean, Dan's making a comment here, which is had a PM who was asking me to concentrate on things that were counter to the metrics for my end of year rating and created friction. Yes.
Yeah.
So here's the interesting thing that a wise person once told me: the metrics don't matter unless you don't meet them.
Yeah.
So, for example, it's often in jobs you have, like, even with Doc and myself, we've got our core responsibilities of things to do, but there are, like with any big company, a million other interesting, shiny things that we want to be involved in, we want to be doing. And it's fine if we do all of those things, as long as we actually meet our metrics. Because what's going to happen then is, like, let's say it gets to time to review time and we discuss, listen, how are things going?
Yeah.
And I list 5 super impactful, super awesome things I've been working at. My manager is going to go, great, but Kpis, what about your day job? Why didn't you do the things we agreed upon at the start of the year that is important to us and you need to meet? And then it's not going to be a pleasant discussion. Whereas if I did all of those things that I'm supposed to be doing, and then I had only 2 or 3 other shiny things that I did that had impact, then it'd be a great discussion. Listen, you did this, you had impact over here, it's all good. So just remember, always figure out what are your things that you're going to be measured on, and also make sure that you cover that base first.
This is an excellent segue into one of the things that I was doing, and kind of fills into one impactful event in my career that actually is this, right? So a long time ago, I used to work for a company that I was kind of a help desk-ish type of person, right? Helping out customers and answering phone calls and fixing printers and computers, and you know the deal, the fun stuff. But then I found like, oh, I can do this, I can do that. I built this automation system for like handheld scanners and some automation of some backups of VMs, like chunky, beautiful things. Like at least in my mind, they were amazing, right? I was super proud of what I did, and they solved a lot of problems. However, I didn't do my day job, and then when one of my reviews came in with my manager, he's like, Darko, why are you not focusing on the customers and doing this and this? I'm like, yeah, but have you seen what I built? He's like, that's amazing what you built, but we don't need that right now. We need you to do this, right? If you wanted to do that, that's okay. We can change your roles and you can be that. But your job is this. And then like, oh, I was young, right? I was like, oh, okay. That makes sense, right? Try to keep on what you're doing, and even today, I get into that pitfall. I struggle sometimes with focusing on what I actually need to do versus a shiny. Let me do that. So it is very important to kind of like, if you are going to build something, if you're going to be, pushing the needle or pushing the envelope, make sure to do it along with what you need to do. And I think your quote, Kpis, that metrics don't matter if you meet them. That's just amazing, right? Yeah. Everything on top is just fluff. So, yeah.
Oh. Cool hoodie. Yes. So this is actually our team hoodies that we did a batch of them end of last year, I think. And everybody has these, and we all got these cool 8-bit graphics that was done for the whole
try to find mine.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Darko, it's actually it's I think the first piece of personalized swag I've received at AWS, because obviously we get, like, when the events and things, a shirt like with Summits, there used to be like a shirt with the Summit logo and things. They're cool and all that, but this kind of feels like, this is nice. And also that's why you'll notice that I'm sitting a little bit back, because I specifically wanted to be in frame over here just to brag a little bit about my swag.
Mine is lost, so it's somewhere. I think it's in the wash. I think it's in the wash. So no, yeah. It's an awesome hoodie. Yeah. I've actually ended up like not having any of my hoodies like store-bought hoodies. I only have either conference hoodies or Amazon hoodies. So yeah.
So here's a quick thing. This is going to be an interesting discussion, because Pro Evil says that metric targets just sound like so much lost innovation, crushed potential. Happy don't exist in that world. So yes and no. So I agree that having soul-crushing metrics just for the sake of metrics is pointless. Like it means you can't innovate and you can't do anything that you're supposed, or that makes things better and all that. But on the flip side, just remember that there's also this thing where people do what you measure them by. So measurements and KPIs drive behavior. And we've seen it very often that, I mean, let's take a place that I worked at some point, which was the software developers had KPIs of features getting to production on time.
Yeah.
The project managers had number of features released, not number of features released and working. QA had a KPI of number of bugs found versus number of bugs in production. But the number of bugs found was also a specific thing that the more you found, the better you were rated. And things like that. And what ended up happening is obviously we were all pulling in different direction because what's my KPI that I want to do to, help me get my bonus? And I mean, example of that was I think it was 42 or 47 bugs logged against me for a reporting system because of the few hundred reports that we had worked on. Some of the titles ended with a full stop and some of them hadn't. So instead of logging one ticket saying reports A to whatever Z are missing the full stop or the other way around, I had 47 individual bugs that I had to individually go and update and close because guess what? Number of bugs, bonus.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like,
See, this is one of the things when it comes to KPIs. Now, KPIs are important. Pro-Evils, I understand your concern, and sometimes soul-crushing KPIs and metrics can be a problem. I worked in such environments, and trust me, I relate to you on that point. However, KPIs are hard. And I always make this, I wouldn't call it a mistake, but I always tell people like, what are your KPIs? Do you know your KPIs? Do you know your metrics? And I sometimes expect from people like, let me pull them out of my pocket. KPIs are hard and they often get changed. Even in companies such as Amazon. For things we have worked on, I worked in teams where our KPIs changed per year because they were not good. Like they were not the thing we're looking for. And that's okay. It's fine to start out with a arbitrary metric or an arbitrary KPI and then like, okay, is this what we're looking for? No, let's change our KPIs. Hence, when you're doing DevOps, when you're doing your code releases, when you're doing automation, the feedback loop is important to see, do the metrics I look at, are they good? Like, is this valid? Or shall we change our metrics? Shall we change our things? So yeah. Don't ever, it's okay to challenge metrics and KPIs. I would say so. And that's what I did. But a lot.
But see, the thing is you need KPIs of some form. Because think about it this way. Let's say I'm a manager and I've got a team of 10 people. We don't agree on what the KPIs are. Now, at the end of the year, it comes to increases in performance review.
Yeah.
How do I do that review objectively and not subjectively based on who was the nicest to me and who I think did the most work based on what I could see? Because remember, you also need to work on making the work that you do and the impact you have visible. Because if you don't do it, guess what? Nobody else is going to do that for you. It becomes very hard because I can just say, well, Darko, I saw him in front of the computer every day when I walked in at 6 a.m. and he was still there at 6 p.m. when I left. And meanwhile, Darko just came in early to play World of Warcraft because the bandwidth at work was better and he just quickly alt-tabbed out when the manager walked past. A random example that I may or may not have experienced in the industry. Do
you want to hear the worst KPI I ever had? And feel free to laugh. I used to work for a government agency. I'm not going to say which one, but a government agency. I had a boss, my manager. It's not a manager. It's a boss, whatever. And his KPI for me was that I need to look busy.
Yeah. Wow.
He's like, can you please just get a hammer, a screwdriver, and just walk through the halls every hour so people can see that you're fixing things? I was fixing computers, mind you. So that was my KPI. I think it's the worst KPI out there, but that's what that was expected from me, right? So like, I had a screwdriver or a hammer on hand, and literally every hour-ish, I would just walk down the hall so people can see me that I'm busy. So there's a chat here. I want to mention out this one because I think it's important as well. From As Vincent, and As Vincent, welcome to our chat. Welcome to our stream. KPIs are important. They're indicators. The performance is what important. You're trying to make your business better, right? hopefully. Not everybody's married to their job, and that's fine. But you're ultimately trying to, or your management is trying to move the business forward. So KPIs are basically just measurements of what you do. They can be absolutely wrong, like in my case with a screwdriver.
Yep.
But that's when you have to redefine them. They say, okay, Darko carrying around a screwdriver every half an hour does not move the needle, does not achieve what we want to achieve. Hence, you have to change them. Yeah.
And I especially like the second comment now of his, which is, let me just quickly find my mouse. Where'd my mouse go? Sorry, Synergy is behaving weirdly. Which is the one that management's hard. We don't have to cargo cult KPIs. And I think that's something that folks often get wrong. And it took me a while to realize that we all understand clothing fashion. Like, it's fashionable to wear whatever it is at the moment. Don't ask me because I have no idea. But let's say blue shoes and white jeans is in. Everybody's wearing it if you know what's going on. The same happens in tech, not just on the what frameworks and what software to use, but also how to do things. So I'm sure a lot of you folks actually know about that famous, I think, Spotify video on how the agile process worked with guilds and squads and all of those things. Great animated video and detail and ideas in there. And then it came out a few years later, well, that's what they were striving to, but they never actually got there. And what often happens is you read these like almost self-help success books of how to do KPIs and how to do management, how to do something like, and then people adopt it without understanding what it's solving and how it needs to be adapted to what you're doing. And then that's where the cargo cult thing comes in and say, like, listen, well, you need to have a sprint and you need to estimate using poker. What is it? Bernoulli, not Bernoulli numbers. Those kind of things. It's just like,
And so, things like this happen. And it's always one of the things that I want to tell you as an engineer to an engineer. It's fine to challenge things like that. Say, hey, this doesn't work. This is not correct. If you can give a valuable answer. Sometimes you're in a non-envious position where you have to defend your thought because just something new came up, right? So you are the person trying to all of a sudden defend what you're doing, even though you had nothing to do with it. Like, somebody comes to you like, we are going to change our hosting platform from a static web page to Kubernetes. And then all of a sudden you're in a position like explaining to people that, no, you shouldn't do that. And it's not your job to do it. But yeah, so sometimes you have to do that. And that's okay. Again, if you care. If you don't care, that's a different story. If you want your business, your career as well, one of the things that people don't understand is like, my career, my personal development, my skills have linearly increased with my company. The better is my company, the more things I know, right? I could have stayed in the government institution, carried around my screwdriver and my hammer, and just like been busy for the rest of my life. I wouldn't learn anything. But right. But I challenged things and moved on, and that's why you want to make things.
But I mean, so on that, it's a story. I don't want to even mention what country it was in because that will typecast folks. But it's a person who went in also from a big consulting firm and walked in there, and after like a few weeks, he realized that there's one person who was just sitting at the front, not doing any coding, and and their job was as a software developer. And when they went up to the person saying, "Listen, is there something we can help you? Are you stuck with something? Because we notice you're not really doing anything. What's up with that?" And the person's response was, and are you ready for this, Darko? Yes, I'm busy getting experience. I've been in this job for 2 years. I'm getting experience I put on my CV.
There you go.
Yeah.
Some people are just in for the ride. And that's the thing. Just another comment from As Vincent. This is absolutely true, right? So business management practices in smaller companies that work in smaller mid-sized companies are not the same as in big Googles, Amazons, and Microsofts. Yes. And that's absolutely true, right? We are not trying to sit on our high horse here in a big FANG company and say, like, this is how you should do things. Absolutely not. However, we all came from small companies. I started in a very small company, and we all kind of brought ourselves up, so we know kind of how things work. And it's always good to kind of suggest people, hey, you can kind of bring the pizzazz from bigger companies into your small one. But absolutely, this is completely correct, right? So experience is a KPI of a skill level, definitely. Or as Pro Evil says, 200 IQ. Yeah, I'm getting my IQ bigger here. That's why I joined.
It's The thing is, it's always like the whole scaling. As soon as you bring scale into any discussion, things get interesting very quickly. Because I mean, anything past, I'd say 20, maybe if you push it 30 folks, if they work really well together, you have to start bringing in processes. So there's no other way. Up until that point, everything can be verbal, and there's enough comm channels so that people know about it. But I mean, jeepers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's take a slight diversion from the topic here, just to help out our fellow viewer, Yufi Alam. Hi, folks. Any AWS service you suggest to get started with serverless?
Yes.
I would first of all, chat, give us your opinions as well. But Kpis, what is your opinion?
That's my attempt at an A. Amplify.
Amplify, yes.
Yes.
definitely.
Between Amplify and SAM. But at this point in time, I would definitely recommend Amplify, because just the ability to bolt on more things and have it to help you manage it for you and set up all the pipelines and deployments and infrastructure. It's just like Amplify is amazing. I love it. I've used it for a few things myself.
Also, if it depends on what you want to do, right? So if you want to do something simple, well, to be honest, Amplify does a lot of things for you. So like, I think most cases Amplify will be the solution for you. But check out AWS Amplify. There's wonderful workshops out there for AWS Amplify that you can check out, and it can bring you up to speed with a lot of things out there, right? So, Pro Evils would not recommend Amplify. Okay, Pro Evils, tell us why. We really want to hear, because my experience with Amplify was, now, caveat, I am not a front-end React.js Angular developer. I am not. I am a system admin. I know some code, and that's about it. But I had relatively smooth experiences with Amplify, especially plugging in things that I want. That could be just my hello world, this is what I built experience. But I would like to hear, Pro Evils, what your thought on this is as well.
And just quickly, sorry, I just need to apologize to the audience for all my yawning. My kids kept me up between 12 and 4 this morning, so I'm a little bit of a zombie today.
Oh yeah, well I got up at 5, so I am high on caffeine. I had a meetup this morning at 9 in Poland virtually. So I've been talking since this morning. So yeah.
Nice. At least one of us is awake.
Exactly. So yeah. Okay, cool. Well, this has been a very interesting chat as well. For anybody new who's joined us, we have some time left. Today, Kpis and I have been discussing serverless parenting platform. Is there such a thing?
I wish of something.
Yeah, fully managed parenting platform, right?
Nighttime cuddle service for the kids to not make them keep you awake for 30 minutes to try and while they're sleeping, but as soon as you get up, they wake up again. Yeah, no.
There you go. So today, Kpis and I have discussed like some of the impactful events or some of the challenges and hurdles we had in our IT careers. Kpis talked about his attempts to make a big change in an environment that people have not accepted easy. So yeah, that's one of the things that are sometimes difficult. Big changes take a lot of effort to kind of get adopted, not because the changes are big, but because sometimes people can be against it. So to help people adapt them, show them some benefits of them, show them direct things, and also, as Kpis says, involve them from the start.
And I mean, quick comment here from Gert25 about if anybody used Hashicorp waypoints to deploy serverless. It is actually on my list of things to play with. I'm a very big Hashicorp fan, specifically from the Vagrant and Terraform and Packer side of the world. I still need to run Nomad and play with it. I'm actually going to set it up at home a little bit to play with. But if it works, it works. It's one of those things. Figure out what tool works for you the best in your scenario, and you've got skills and you can easily train people on and use it. So if it happens to be this, great.
I've never tried that thing out, right? So, but yeah.
It's fairly new. They announced it last year or earlier this year. I can't remember exactly when.
Yeah. Okay, a couple of comments here regarding Amplify. William Dampier. I think it depends on the use case. Amplify doesn't cover everything, but it's a good tool for starting. Absolutely. That's the whole point. I think if you want to do something more complex, just going the native or the bare bones serverless with Lambda functions and your own setups might prove more fruitful. But again, getting quickly started with serverless is just great with Amplify. Alexander Gamerman, what is the biggest production mistake you have made, and did this impact your employment?
Oh, my one, day 2, I locked everyone out of the system. As in every single customer.
Wow.
Day 2 of my career ever.
Wow. Phew. Let me think about what my biggest blunder was.
So I can actually chat about that.
Chat
I'm
about
not
it.
gonna
I
do
need to think about what mine was. Yeah.
So not that one, but there is a scenario where if you ever take me out for a few beers, I'll tell you about how the time I got fired because of Jira. It wasn't a production mistake; it was a planning mistake and a communications mistake around how to communicate the lateness of projects and things. And certain people had certain assumptions that even though all of the graphs and the planning showed them this is what's going to happen and this is where we're heading, they kept believing no, it's not, because one or two people told them something else. So, but I mean, I think production tech-wise, the biggest one still is I had this beautiful SQL statement to update all the people abusing a sign-up bonus, and then I highlighted update table set locked equals 1 and not the where clause. And that was day 2 of my career. And it actually taught me a lot of things. It didn't have any impact on my employment.
Yeah. I didn't have anything. I didn't ever break anything. I'm one of those engineers that has never broken production, and that's weird. I don't know why. It could be because I didn't have a lot of touch with like big old production systems. I did once. Ooh, what did I do? I worked with a person who tore down the storage system on a Wednesday on a Wednesday afternoon where everything runs, a SAN system, because that person decided to do a firmware update in the middle of the day, and that thing failed. And we spent the week fixing it. Nobody got fired, nothing like that. But that was kind of like one of the biggest blunders that I've been part of. But it wasn't directly me. So I've caused tiny issues here and there. But to be honest, a lot of times the mistakes you make are not visible to people than yourself. Sometimes you make a mistake and like, oh, what is happening? And you kind of like make a mistake and then people just don't notice it. You fix it and people don't notice it, unless it's like tearing down the storage system on a Wednesday. But why? No, stop.
Alexa, order 5,000 rolls of toilet paper. Oh, he's on mute.
It started playing It's Raining Men. Stop.
Hallelujah. Docker's favorite hits. Now you all know. You saw it here first.
Wow, there you go.
We all have those songs we love, Docker. We don't judge, don't worry. But I mean, I'm getting quite a lot of comments now in the last little bit. Quickly just getting back to Pro Evil's comment over here in terms of like his experience with Amplify. I think part of that might be that the things that you're mentioning is obviously things that I can understand that aren't as polished and well sorted yet, but because it is still a fairly new product and it's still evolving at a very rapid pace, and that unfortunately does come with things not being necessarily the way most people want them, or they expect them to be, or things like that. It's just it takes time to get a product to the point where it's super polished and it fits with what everybody wants to do. Then Yufi Alam has another question for us. CLIs on Linux, and what is our best GNU CLI tool?
Vim.
Oh,
I'm not sure which tool you're talking about. So this this is where we can get into discussions. But
I would say SSH. SSH by far.
SSH. Yeah,
it
SSH,
gets you everywhere.
It gets you everywhere. SSH. Telnet. And Tmux or Screen.
Telnet to send an email. I have done that. It's a very interesting process.
I've worked with a customer once that they have it's 2016 and SSH is banned because it's not secure.
Oh, I've had that. Yeah,
they have to use Telnet.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess. Yeah, that happens as well. Anyway,
yeah.
I would like to extend a thank you to the chat. It's been very eventful today, all of you. We are sorry if we couldn't get to all the messages, but we try to at least reach out to all the folks here that are dropping in questions. One of the things that I would like to hear from you is that reach out to us on Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever you find us. I think, let me just show our stuff here as well. You can find the social media things there. Reach out to us and let us know what you would like us to talk about. Right?
Yeah. And I think also just one thing I want to push, and this is not those please hit the subscribe buttons, but it is please hit the subscribe buttons, because at some point we may not be streaming on the official AWS channel if there's other big event on or other things happening, but we still continue streaming. So easiest is probably either the YouTube one, or we actually don't have a shared Twitch. We should maybe do that at some point.
No,
but I mean,
we can do a shared, but all the videos are on this channel here.
Yeah.
And on our own respective things, and even on this Twitch channel. So if you're watching on twitch.tv/AWS, this video is available, and also all the previous other episodes. So if you want to hear two bald guys bantering about technology, we show technology sometimes. It's not just about this, but we find this to be very entertaining for us, but it's also very much we hope it's useful for you, right? So tell us if you like something like this. Would you like us to try something else? If there are some topics you would like us to talk, we're open for all of that stuff as well.
And I mean, this comment by William Dampier around learning how you break stuff, that is my favorite thing. It's also one of my favorite interview questions. Is like, whenever you tell me like, oh, I worked on X, Y, and Z, my first question normally is, okay, so where did it break? Where did it behave in a way that you didn't expect? And how did you fix it? Because if you can't answer those questions, I know you didn't work on it. Because I've had people in the interview say like, oh yeah, no, we rolled out a new blah, 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 blah with bloody blah on it. And you're like, okay, cool. So, and the person says, no, it just worked perfectly. It's like, no, software doesn't work that way. It does not work perfectly first time round. It's,
yeah. That's a fair point. Breaking things is a great way to kind of learn, right? And that I broke my PS4 last week. So, I've decided to clean it up and I broke it. But I fixed it later on. I figured out what the problem was, and I learned new things. So I've learned Sony makes beautiful hardware, but some of their choices are weird. But okay, Okay, cool. So everybody, we will thank you once again. Please do reach out to us on social media or wherever you find us. I guess. If you search for our names, you will find us. My name is Darko Mesaros, and that's Kpis Bernard. That's Kpis Bernard. You can find us. You can find us. That's you. No. Yes. So find us anywhere. Find us and let us know if you want some specific topic us to talk about. We will be seeing you next week at the same time, at the same place. So twitch.tv/AWS or any of these other channels that are posted below at 1 p.m. Central European time. And we don't know the topic for next week. We're trying to get a guest in, but we will make sure to post that on the social medias as well. So awesome. With that being said, thank you very much.
Yeah,
we hope you enjoy the rest of the week. Kpis, thank you very much. And
thanks everyone for being very chatty today. This was actually a lot of fun. We like chatting to people and we miss people. We our roles are about talking to people and hello wall, hello camera.
Yeah, maybe one day we make a DevBeardOps in person somewhere.
Yes.
And you can all come. So that would be amazing. So,
yes.
Thank you all and have a lovely day. See ya. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.